While Netflix has one great sci-fi novel adaptation that should have been a bigger success upon its release, the show's unusual structure means that it always felt like it belonged to another medium. Netflix was at the forefront of promoting the binge-watching model, but not all the streaming service's original shows feel like they fit this release schedule. Some, like Netflix's addictive psychological thriller The Hunting Wives, feel like they need to be screened over the course of a single weekend. However, there are other Netflix shows, like the underrated sci-fi spin-off Pacific Rim, The Black, that benefit from a slower viewing pace. Since only Netflix's biggest shows tend to have their seasons split into volumes, it is up to viewers how they consume each new series. In the case of one expensive sci-fi show, this might have been a misstep, as the show works much better when viewed as an extremely long single movie and not a series of episodes. Released in 2024, Three Body Problem was a major Netflix sci-fi series that came from Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. Based on the acclaimed novel series Remembrance of Earth's Past by Chinese novelist Liu Cixin, the show focuses on a group of characters from across the world who are faced with the question of how best to handle potential contact between an alien species and humanity. The show's main storyline focuses on the Oxford Five, a multidisciplinary group of researchers. Three Body Problem feels more like a massive movie than a miniseries. However, Three Body Problem's complex Season 1 plot also integrated the story of an astrophysicist whose life and work proved unexpectedly pivotal to the events of the show. As this naughty synopsis proves, Three Body Problem was hardly the most straightforward show on Netflix, and even within a genre that is infamous for featuring time travel, alternate universes, and clones, the show proved confusing for critics as well as casual viewers. However, upon a rewatch, it becomes clear that Three Body Problem's story functions far better when viewed as one long movie chopped into parts, in part because of how the show chooses to adapt the lengthy source material. This makes the series a uniquely ideal candidate for binge-watching, as the audience is more likely to keep track of the show's surprisingly complex science without forgetting details. Three Body Problem proves some Netflix shows need to be binge-watched. Like Benioff and Weiss's earlier HBO fantasy hit Game of Thrones, Three Body Problem is not afraid to jump from one storyline to a completely unrelated character's plot without worrying about when, or if, these will ever collide. While this worked well in the case of Game of Thrones, the fact that Three Body Problem is simultaneously adapting an unusually complicated sci-fi story and introducing viewers to a lot of new scientific concepts makes its plot more impenetrable. Three Body Problem isn't the most complex TV show ever made, but it does prove that some shows are far easier to follow when binge-watched. This isn't the first time that critics and viewers have made this observation either. Shortly after the streaming revolution began, David Lynch and Mark Frost's 2017 revival Twin Peaks, The Return was dubbed a 17-hour movie by numerous reviewers thanks to its hypnotic, immersive storytelling style. Where Twin Peaks was originally a murder mystery that followed the serialized format of a traditional network show, Twin Peaks, The Return was slower, more challenging, and more opaque in its plotting. This proved frustrating for some fans, but rewatching the show as one massive movie proved that, like Three Body Problem, the series felt like an entirely different viewing experience when audience members embraced the highs and lows of the binge-watching model.